I think a lot of people who don't make it in real estate just don't make it because they're just focused on the wrong stuff. Let me explain. So many people are just focused on the idea of getting like that one big deal, that epic, commission or whatever. And I think it's a huge mistake. I think of it like if a baseball team only did batting practice and they only tried to hit home runs or grand slams. There's no fundamentals. And I think the only way to acquire that fundamental knowledge of how to help people, how to trade real estate, is through volume. A lot of these lessons that I learned the hard way, or just kind of a very natural way where I just fell into them. I didn't know how important they were until now I can look back in retrospect and really feel that. For example, the first month that I had any closing, so I think of this as sort of like month number one for me in real estate production. There were 3 months or so leading up to that first month of actual closings. But in that first month, which was June of 2020, I closed 5 properties for a total of less than $1 million, which means that the median sale price, or the average sale price, was less than $200,000 a piece. But what I know now that I didn't know then is that the volume of doing 5 transactions was incredibly valuable to me, and I learned so much more doing 5 smaller transactions than I would have doing $1 million transaction. So when I say volume is the answer, I don't just mean like do less valuable transactions so you can do more of them for the same. That's definitely not what I mean. I mean that there's actually value in that. So what I'm saying is don't just target, the grand slams. Just know that doing more transactions will lead to, of course, higher overall sales volume, but also it will lead to a higher median sales price. It's crazy how it works, but you just have to get started and just focus on total volume of closed transactions. And I believe that higher median sale prices will come along with that because you'll know more, you'll be more of an authority, and you will be trusted more, because you've done more. I think everybody knows this deep down, that the only way to get better at anything is by doing more of that thing, right? It's just practice. But for some reason, real estate agents, new agents, old agents, don't see things that way. They don't see the act of doing the different things associated with being a real estate agent as practice, but it is. The only way to get better at helping a client is by doing more of it. The only way to get better at creating content to attract clients is by doing more of it. Cold calling, door knocking, whatever. The only way is through volume. And I think it applies in different ways that people, just don't want to admit. But let's say you have what you consider to be a picky client. First of all, maybe you're not picky enough. But I think a lot of the time, the only way when you're feeling exhausted by helping somebody who you see as being too picky of a client. Definitely been there. I've definitely experienced people who I think are too picky. But the only way to get them into a home is just by showing them more houses. And by showing them more houses, you can actually ultimately end up showing them fewer houses as they get closer to finding the right house. Because the only way you can really get a sense of what somebody wants, in my opinion, is by showing them houses and listening to their feedback. Because even if you have an incredible screening process of asking them what they're looking for, the truth is people don't always know what they don't know. They don't always know to say that they don't want something in a house because maybe they've never seen it before. So how would you possibly know that that's, a deal breaker for them? And then another thought is you have to have a big enough sample size to recognize any kind of pattern. I think a lot of people think that they try a couple things, it didn't work, so the whole thing couldn't possibly work. Somebody at my old brokerage asked me once, like, how do I always seem to know the right thing to do, the best next move for myself and my brand? What I ultimately told her was that, like, I don't always know. I just do so much in the way of making content, and I make so many of those decisions and try something new and experiment with, you know, the next thing I'm trying, that I just have a larger sample than most other agents. And so when I say volume is the answer, that's probably what I mean above everything else. And so the only way to get really good and dial in on exactly the right stuff and stop doing the stuff that doesn't matter is just through volume. My favorite examples in the real world of why I think, you know, volume is so important is a study that was done with a pottery class where they had one group who really had to make just as good of a thing as possible. They only could make one thing, and by the end of the class or the session or whatever, it had to be one thing that was as good as they possibly could. While the other group was allowed and actually encouraged to make as many pieces as they possibly could make. And then the interesting thing that came out of all this is that the quantity group, the group that was told to make as many as possible, also ended up making the better pottery. And if just the idea of getting better doesn't do enough for you, although I think it is the ultimate reason to do it, I think it will also lead you to making more money. Focus just on how many people you can help, not dollar amounts that they're working with, and that will lead to more sales, much higher volume, and ultimately higher median sale prices. In my first year or so of doing real estate, I helped a friend buy a house for around $190,000. You know, that's about as low as a single family home can cost in the Twin Cities proper. But that was about where her budget was, so all right, whatever. I'm trying to help more people. We found her a house she was very happy with. She closed. Within the next year, she referred me 2 more clients for another $500,000 or so. Had I said no to a $190,000 transaction, I would have been actually saying no to $700,000 worth of real estate. And I promise that this isn't all just theory. It's not like, oh, I think that if you do this stuff, if you are somewhat altruistic and you focus on the things that I think matter, that it'll ultimately pay off. But I have actually seen this work, and in practice, I think it works in a really, really great way. This is based on evidence. Like I said, the first month that we had any closings, that I had any closings as a solo agent, I closed 5 homes for less than $1 million, so an average of less than $200,000 a piece. And now toward the end of 2024, in the last 365 days, our average sale price has been $500,000, which is $150,000 more than the Twin Cities Metro. I realize that for some people, that's relatively low. For some markets, that would still be like pretty low. But for the Twin Cities market, it's actually pretty high. I know that it could be higher, but we've sold $41 million in real estate in the past year. And I have goals for that number to be way higher. Let's say way over $100 million a year in overall volume. But it's not because I'm going to be focusing on raising that median sale price. It's because the goal will be higher volume, hard stop, just selling more homes, helping more people. And if I can figure out how to be more helpful in my marketing, in my branding, in everything that I do, I will figure out how to help more people. If I can help more people, my overall volume will go up, my team will get bigger, I'll be able to help the people on my team live bigger, better, cooler lives. And to me, That's the thing that matters. And at this point in my life, in my business, I think it's the funnest way to go about it. And so if you're wondering what you should do next, you're stuck or you just don't know what to do, I would say do more of what you're doing and figure out what works, figure out what doesn't, and then do more of what works, less of what doesn't. And I promise you, it'll work out. I have a Zoom call that starts right now. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.